a leader in some capacity. You may not be a decision maker, but you either work with volunteers or other individuals. You lead committees, you lead groups. As leaders, we have an opportunity to teach those lessons to the people around us as well. And that's really what professional development is all about. So before we get too far into that, let me just tell you a little bit about myself and what I do, and then we'll go from there. I started Up a Notch Consulting, like you see on the screen, and I work with teams and individuals on improving their effectiveness. And it can be everything from executive coaching to a multi-day training course. I teach 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I organize workspaces and closets as well. So really, I focus on helping individuals who are not where they want to be, or helping teams or managers who have teams that are not where they want to be. And we do needs analysis process of where we are today, where we want to be in the future, and how do we fill that gap. And some of that is what we'll talk about tonight, how to develop the people around you, or the processes or the procedures that you have in place to get you where you want to be. And so that's what I do for a living. I worked for La Quinta Inns, was their customer service trainer, worked in their front desk, and for 6 weeks, and then went nationwide and trained the front desk clerks, which was a great job. Loved it, and then moved to Austin and worked for a call center and trained call center representatives on everything from sales training to customer service training and management training for their management staff. And then I moved to the state auditor's office and worked with the auditors there, and it was all professional level staff, and did lots of management communication skills, leadership skills, and needs analysis of programs that were in place that weren't where they needed to be. And then most recently, I was the executive director of a nonprofit called Texas Roundup. We had 3 obesity prevention programs and worked to improve the health of the state of Texas. We also had a 7,000 person fun run, or really fun run, it was 5K, 10K race in downtown Austin. And so from the nonprofit perspective, I know where you're sitting. From the volunteer perspective of getting 5,000 volunteers to help us operate that race, I know where you're sitting, and also from the office perspective, I know where you're sitting. So hopefully I can give you some guidance in those areas today, and feel free to stop me as we go. If you have questions, if we need to have a much longer conversation, we can do it after the class. But as I go through the presentation today, I'm going to use the words staff and volunteer kind of interchangeably, leader, manager, organization, corporation, because I think you all can figure out how it plays into the mix here. And all this information can be applied in multiple settings. It can be applied from a manager to their actual work team, a team leader to the committee or the group that they work with, a leader on an event day of those volunteers, a volunteer administrator, and all of the volunteers that come in on a regular basis. So all of this applies across the board. Do you have any questions or thoughts before we get started? All right. I speak a little fast, so if you need me to slow down, just let me know. So the professional development process starts with figuring out the details. And what we're going to do for the next hour, hour and a half, is we're going to talk about a process, and it starts with figuring out the details of your organization. But we're going to take that process all the way around. We're going to start with figuring out the details of who's in your organization, what type of role do they fill, what expectations do you have of them, how do you train them, what's the best training method, and you'll see a lot more of that. We're then going to talk about planning and conducting training. It's great if you know all that other information, but you don't actually know how to pull something together so it's effective training and it helps somebody. We'll also talk about basic professional development for individuals that may not be related to a training course per se or volunteer training. Then we're going to talk some about how you allow time for the individuals that you're training to practice and why that's important and how we can fit that in. And then, of course, we'll talk about evaluating success, because in every good training program, you also have an evaluation point. And if it's not successful, what do you need to do? Fix it, right? So then you start back over with holding all accountable equally. So if things aren't working, it doesn't mean people get fired necessarily. It just means something needs to be tweaked or changed. And we hold everybody from the volunteer on event day to the executive director accountable equally for issues of not meeting expectations or rewarding them for meeting their expectations. So this is the process that we're going to talk about. over the next hour, and then you'll actually at some point have an opportunity to work through a diagram that you're going to see up here with a role in your organization, and you can map that out and we can answer any questions as we go along. So we're starting with figuring out the details, and the biggest piece of this is taking the time to sit down with a legal pad or your iPad or however you like to brainstorm and think through step by step who your organization is, what they do, what you need people who are in volunteer roles in your organization to do, or what you need staff members to do if you're leading a team in that capacity. But to stop and think about what the role is, how it fits into the big picture, what do I need them to do, and now how do I teach them that, which is the basis. So for sake of discussion, I have come up with the Senior Resource Center as the organization we're going to talk about today. And the Senior Resource Center has 3 programs: meal delivery, center hotline, and an activities program. And this mythical place is a facility where senior citizens can come during the day and play games or get training or take classes. They also have a meal delivery program, and then they have a center hotline for seniors who have questions about who to call for different things, or if something is wrong and they don't know where to go for help. So the first thing to do in figuring out the details, and I know those are very technical terms, and I use those terms, and you'll see it throughout the presentation. There are no big fancy words or terms here for what we're doing. I use those because I strongly feel that anybody can do this. You can walk out that door, you can share this information with people that you work with, your friends at happy hour or at a networking network or wherever you go, and you can use these plain terms that people can understand and go step by step, because it's not rocket science, it's just taking the time to do it. So let's look at the volunteer roles. For our meal delivery program, we have a meal prep volunteer and then a driver. For the center hotline, we have front office support, and then for the activities program, we have activities support. So these would be the people who come and play checkers and all of that. So that's the first step. Identify your volunteer roles and how they fit into each of your programs. If you have these floating volunteers over here that maybe do a little bit of everything, you really should think about creating a category on your legal pad of some sort for, okay, what do we call these floaters, and what kind of training do we need to make sure they have before they start to float? Because it wouldn't be very effective for you to have these people that you have to train on this program this week, and on this program next week, and on this program next week. So that's something you would want to think through. But for the sake of our discussion today, we have 3 programs and 4 specific volunteer roles. So when you get to your volunteer roles, then you have to start talking about the expectations. So I'm going to pick one role, and that's the role of the driver. Or we'll actually pick 2 roles, but for this example, we're going to talk about the driver. So the driver, what do we need him or her to do? We need them to pick up their meals by 10:30 in the morning. We need them to deliver their meals by 11:30, and we need them to have the coolers back by noon to the facility. Those are some pretty basic expectations. So then we look at training required. What do I need to do? What do I need to tell this person? What do I need to show them? What do I need to put them through so that they can meet those expectations? So you go expectation by expectation, and you say, okay, so for the meals, picking them up, I need to show them the location. I need to teach them the process, right, of where to go, where to pick up the coolers, who cleans them, who packs them, how to get them into your car, where do you park, all those details. For the delivery itself, I need some route training. That could be lots of different things, but I need route training. And then when they return the coolers, that location and process training that you did in the beginning is probably would include the end process as well. Where do you take the coolers back? Do you clean them to somebody else? Do you drop them off at the door? How does it work? So once you have that down, which is really, this is the nut and bolts of it, and that if you took one volunteer role and spent 20 minutes over a cup of coffee and did maybe 1 or 2 a week over the course of a few weeks, you probably would have some pretty crystal clear instructions for yourself as to who you have working with you in your organization and how you want to develop them and what it is that they need to be better at what they're already doing if they're already doing it. So then we talk about training methods. So it probably wouldn't be effective for me to stand up here, and you all are my drivers, for me to stand up here and say, so here is your route, and I'm passing it out on a map. Enjoy, there's your route, take that. And here's how it works. So you all come to the facility, you park by the back door, and you come in, you get the coolers. They'll be right there by the back door somewhere. And then you put them in your car, and you go deliver them to that route that you have there. And then when you're finished, bring them back by noon, please, because the facility kitchen closes. So by noon, bring them back. And then if you could clean them and put them on the shelves, you'll see them in the back of the workroom. It says meal coolers. And just put them back there. Does that work for everybody? Are y'all ready to go? No. Probably not. Probably not. Now, how many of you have been in a situation where that's the type of training you get? Whether it be job or volunteer capacity. Absolutely. It happens all the time. So, what we want to do is think through what's going to be the best method. And for the location and process, an on-site tour is a must. If these individuals are committed to your organization and they want to volunteer for you, they're not going to have a problem coming to your facility to get the tour so they can do the best job they can possibly do as volunteers. As a route, or for the route, it'd be great if they could drive with somebody who's driven the route before, or if they could be paired with another volunteer and they drive each other's routes and you kind of take notes and then you report back to, you know, this room in the center and we all talk about how the routes went or what issues do we have. But giving them some sort of actual experience with those physical homes, because if they have a cooler of meals in the back of their car and they can't find a house, not only is the clock ticking, but the food safety is too. So we want to make sure that they know their route and they can drive it efficiently. And you can easily tell people to do that on their own time, but the likelihood that they're actually going to do it is probably slim. I mean, we're all busy. We all have 20 other things to be doing. So you have a better chance of success if you take the time and plan some sort of route training for them. And then again, for the return, the on-site tour. And that would probably all be done at once as well. So thinking through this process from beginning to end will give you the roadmap that you need. This will determine what type of training you do. Is it in the classroom? Is it one-on-one? Is it the morning of the event and you huddle, you know, the 20 people here that are here for the 8 o'clock shift and we are going to walk through the process right now, right here. Regardless of what setting you're in, thinking through the process is critical and it must be the first step. There is nothing worse than being a volunteer. Okay, go ahead.
One of the very first things you said was taking time to do it. And in a volunteer organization, a lot of times you have people who come to you in a panic reactive state saying, oh my gosh, you did it again. I understand you have virtually no control over other people. No, you have none.
None. No
Basically,
control
but
over
you know,
others.
basically, you try to. But is there a way to help these people out of their reactivity through? I mean, what means would you use?
Are they volunteers themselves, or are they in charge of programs that have volunteers?
They're in
Or just-
other capacities within the
in-
organization that use volunteers, and things happen that they come. What can a volunteer do? Is this something they can do? You know, and it's more of an anxiety panic reaction.
Sure.
But
Well, and let me say before I answer that question that if this is not a typical way to work in your organization, you have to give some time for the change to kind of ripple through to the different levels. So with that said, you know, if you had, and you can use any sort of document, it could be your legal pad, but if you had something like this in your office and said, I'm sure we can find volunteers for your program, that would be, I'm sure we can. We've got 5,000 people who are really excited about helping us. So what I need you to do is go and give me some details as to what you need the volunteers to do and what kind of expectations you have of them and how you think we can best get them trained. You get them started. First of all, it diffuses the situation a little bit because it puts the brake on the craziness and it's, well, wait a minute, we have to step back. And that can even just be done verbally. Okay, before we go any further, these are the 3 things that I must know from you. You cannot prescribe before you diagnose, right? You have to diagnose before you prescribe. So